Hi there, my name is Jennifer Claudio. I'm a science teacher at Oak Grove High School in San Jose, California. And today I'll be presenting to you, helping you get your students from topic to project in the science fair development process. So I'm hoping to bring you some tips that might be useful to you and to your students. But first, let's look at what the research process is like. It's like a roller coaster ride at your favorite theme park. Sounds fun at first, but then next thing you know, you stand in line for what feels like forever. Then you're on a scary ride that tosses you left and right, and you've got some dips, and then you hang on for dear life. And then suddenly, it's over. And then you or your students say, let's do it again. And you drag more friends along with you this time. And the science fair process is just like that. There's a lot of anticipation that builds up. There's a little bit of fear, there's a little bit of anxiety. There's parts where you're not sure you're gonna make it. And then suddenly it's over and everyone's had a good time. And it becomes a very cyclic process. Whether you're new to working with students in science research, or whether you're just looking for fresh ideas, here I've got 5 tips for you for helping students through the project development process. Tip number 1, make quick reading resources available both physically and online. So in my classroom, I keep magazines as available as possible, and I keep a wide range of them, some with some of the zoological sciences, mechanical sciences, just everything, so that students of different interests can find something that's appealing to them. And conveniently, in this case, I've got a student who's holding a Science News educator guide, looking at one of those rising carbon dioxide threatens lake and food webs kind of article. And so the availability of these for students really helps them think about things that maybe they wouldn't consider on their own. These days, we're also using a lot of the online resources. And so Science News is also available online. Conveniently, students can get a feed on their phone, and they can access it through Chromebooks and whatever devices that they might have available to them. The Science News is also available at the lower Lexile reading level for Science News for students. And so that's been really helpful for my students who are English language learners, for those who are a little less proficient in the English language, and also for my students with disabilities. So some of them have reading disabilities, and so that lower Lexile level is very helpful. Tip number 2. Use Science News articles to teach about variables. So there's a whole range of topics that you get out of the Science News magazines, everything from anthropology to zoology. And so students can start asking questions. What could they do? So first they identify what the researchers actually did, but from there, what else can be done? What limitations were there? What could they consider? And so you can use this as a teaching tool about independent variables, dependent variables, as well as controls. And those are key things. Those are very important in the science fair and science research process. Tip number 3, promote student recognition of research needs. Students need to recognize that the research is needed. Ask them who cares. And so it's not just a hypothetical question about who cares, but rather, why does that care exist? What need is being filled? And so students realize that what they're doing might fill a small hole. It might be a small piece of something, and yet it's still contributing to the science community, and it's still contributing to the research needs that are out there. So promote student recognition, help them know that there is a need for the research that they do. And no matter how small it is, a contribution is still a contribution. If it benefits one person, it's benefited someone. Tip number 4, look for ways to scale methods in suitable manners. So these students read articles in the Science News magazines, and not all of our schools have access to all those things. And by access, I mean we don't have it internally, or sometimes we don't even have a university near us, especially for some of the rural schools, to actually use some of these instruments. And so help students find ways to scale methods to suitable ways. And so that deals with both the instrumentation as well as their choice of model organisms. A lot of my students find themselves interested in the human sciences, but human experimentation is not really feasible for them. So I help them find model organisms. Like if they're interested in heart studies, heart arrhythmias, then fruit flies are great for them. If they're interested in memory studies, honeybees actually work pretty well. So there's ways to scale these things. Some of mine get interested in the architectural constructions, and so we do smaller scale things. And so that also helps them look for a piece of that experiment rather than trying to bite off more than they can chew and then getting overwhelmed. So scaling the methods, scaling the topic is essential to that process. Tip number 5, explore related ideas that are locally relevant. So the students might read some of these articles and they're kind of interesting, like plastic recycling or something about air on the large scale, or about plant partners in the article that's featured in this picture. But then these students read these articles and found tangential things that were relevant to us in our environment. So one of them started looking at the cigarette butts and the effects on seed germination. The one on the far right wanted to see it in altered gravity situations because she had a passion for the space sciences. So how did the allelopathies between plants change in altered gravity situations? And then the student on the far left looked at the triketone bonds just based on a recycling project that didn't actually have anything to do with those bonds, those chemical bonds in the first place, but they were locally relevant to these students here. And of course, a bonus tip for you, celebrate the student participation in fairs and showcases. Most of the students didn't ever think that they would do a science fair in the first place, but they tried, they took the risk, they got in that line for that roller coaster ride, and afterward, they ended up being addicted to doing the science research process, multi-years of projects, and they were not students who originally thought that they'd go into the sciences. And so if you celebrate these participations in fairs, the students catch on to that, and they too celebrate themselves. So the science fair journey becomes beyond more than just the science itself. It's about the self-discovery that they get out of it. Some of the students will discover maybe it's not for them, and that's okay. It's good to acknowledge and to allow those feelings. And so the students who find themselves discovering something about themselves, they all benefit in the long run. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to field them. I've given you my email address through a QR code, so it should be pretty easy to link, as well as my Oak Grove High School courses overview webpage. So thank you again for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you.